something cool to show you. I'm sure James saw this in the background, so let's just get that rolling, and then we'll get started.
In the latest issue of Spectres and Sabanian, we go back in time to ancient Egypt as Anexi tells the greatest love story of all time, Mark Antony and Cleopatra. She should know. She was there, fangs and blood and all. This is her beginning and their ending. Spectres and Sabanian is ongoing on Kickstarter right now. To support it, please click on the link in the description below.
There you go. So there you go. You see what I've been up to and how stuff I've been doing. I'm actually getting kind of decent at this, I think.
Yeah, that looked like a fun ad.
Yeah, it was.
Nice
It was
images.
what? Yeah, just cool thing about doing comics, right? Is they have this ability to like, how do I put this? They already have great images to use. It's just about now taking what they have and just putting the story together. Just it's not hard at all. It's just one of those situations where you just have to basically, put it out there and do your thing. And just for everybody watching, if you do want to support that, you can actually click on the link there. If you do click on the link, that'd be great for the podcast as well. So if nothing else, just do that. And yeah, no, like I said, man, like that was it. Like I got a really quick customer. Like, I can actually tell when I'm interviewing an author. I can almost tell when they want to use my services or something like that. It's like, hey, I can just almost like, I think I can get you. Maybe I've just become a bit more of a salesman like type. I don't know. It's just one of those situations where, I've been playing with it.
Also helps when you're much more confident in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've been doing video stuff for now, like consistently over a year, like because
Right.
I did a show for an immigration company. I've been doing. I mean, I did my first big project with Jane, which I thought was she was awesome. It was great to learn with that. So I know what I'm doing. I got potentially some nibbles here and there, but like I said, it's part of life. I'm never stopping hustling at this point in my life. So it's just like that's just the way it is because I actually want to make money now.
Freelancer life.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. Like I hate it and love it at the same time. It's kind of one of those weird little like wild. You never know what's going to happen day to day, right? Right. You just never ever know. And I find my patience. This is the thing I've learned. Like my patience with certain people has dropped because I don't got time for this shit no more. It's like that's basically how it is. Like, are you serious or not? Because if you are serious, great. If you're not, I got shit to do.
Yep. And I mean that's kind of the way a lot of stuff works. The hardest part of running in any business like this, I don't care what it is not getting the work done. It's the sales process.
Yes.
I mean, there's always going to be hitches in the work. There's always going to be the stuff that doesn't work right, or okay, this takes longer than you expect it to, or you just got to spend your time dealing with something else before you can go build the new toys. But generally, the hardest part is getting the sales cycle going.
Yeah. No, that's just pretty much it, right? It's but like I said, it's well. Also, like I said, I just find like my patience with certain kinds of people has dropped. This is just what I've learned. It's just like I can tell if you know what you're doing or if you're serious a lot quicker now. It's just like, oh man, why are you bothering me? Like that's kind of like one of those.
Well, it's kind of like last week I spent up on Grandfather Mountain doing a bunch of athletics, and we do a bunch of the youth clinics and things like that. And for the most part, I deal with the older kids, 12, 13 and up, because as I look at them, okay, you don't bounce anymore, and if you're here, you're serious.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way things work is if you're here now, okay, you're serious, you've done it, now you're ready to hit that next level of stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, and that's what I learned. I was actually told after a compliment from Jane, a couple other people. It's like you needed to raise your rates. Like we talked about that a few weeks back, and like I said, it's been an interesting up and down process. So now it's just every day I advertise, whether it's an ad or whether it's writing copy, and it's starting to get traction on LinkedIn. I'm getting a lot more people, a lot more impressions on LinkedIn, which I think is actually really good. So we'll see where it goes. I'm just kind of slowly building myself up.
That's kind of the hard part is
Hmm.
there's no overnight miracle. It's get in there and chug. and
Yeah.
it's then do it again tomorrow, and then
Yeah.
again tomorrow, and then it's you start working it uphill, and that's kind of the name of the game.
Yeah. Well, it's a simple game, but it's not an easy game. And I think people confuse simple and easy. It's like you show up, you do your thing, you advertise, repeat. You show up,
Hmm.
do your thing, advertise, repeat. Right? It's simple, but it's ridiculously hard at the same time.
It's not complex.
Yeah.
It's but it's work, and it's persistence, and it is doing it consistently.
Hmm. Yeah. It's not sexy, but that's the thing. Like it you want to be consistent and you want to show up because that is actually, again, as I get older, that's the difference. That's literally the difference. People show, do you show up or you don't? That's literally the difference between a success and a failure.
And sometimes the hard part is, oh yeah, I just want to, I showed up, I was successful, now I'm going to go take a break, and you lose all that momentum. Then you got to
Yeah.
kind of, and sometimes when you fall off that hill, you wind up falling further down than you started before. And you're having to push the hill or push the rock back up the hill even further. And you're like, wait, I was here, now I'm back down here. Well, yeah, you wanted to go take. You can
Yeah.
take there's taking a vacation, and then there's taking a break. There's always times where you need to go refresh and regenerate, but at the end of the day, you can't be gone forever.
Oh, you can't be on forever, and you can't be off forever. Like I go with Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping was a mixed martial arts world champion. He said this: it takes a lot of confidence to take a day off,
Hmm.
right? It takes a lot of confidence to do that. But there's a fine line between that confidence and just being a lazy fucker, right? You got to figure out where that balance is with you, and you got to do it. Like, some days you don't really feel like doing it. And I think yeah, the hardest two parts about this whole business is when you have work, you have to actually act. In some ways, you got to find balance to do the work and keep advertising, right? And the other part is, that line of figuring out your own discipline, like whatever that looks like. Like that's probably like the hardest personal thing I've had to learn. It's like, okay, I must put in at least, like, minimum, I'm working 4 to 6 hours a day. No guarantee of income. Just that's my minimum, right? And then some days I work longer, especially if I have work, like if I know, like, I have a client and I'm doing stuff. And some days I just, some days and then every once in a while you're like, I need a day off. I just need to not do it, whatever that is.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is because no matter what, every day there's certain tasks that have to be done.
Hello, author goddess.
Good afternoon or evening or wherever we're at.
Yeah.
And just as a warning, I'm high on the cold drugs, because round number something of something something. So I'll try not to cough all over everybody. But yeah, again, it's that you've got to just see. I curse myself.
But
It's knowing you just got a list of stuff that's got to get done every day, and if you don't do it today, then that's adds to your list of stuff you got to get done tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. At some point, yeah, you got to stop and take a break of some sort, or at least shift up what you're doing. But doesn't mean the work isn't there anymore. And especially if it's just you or a small crew, um, it's a little bit harder to get caught up. But at some point, as much as I hate to admit it, you still do have to take a break now and then.
you have to. It's just like, it's for your own mental health. You got to be like, you know what? I can't look at this computer all day. I must go out in the sunshine. I must do something, like something, anything. That's I'm seeing if I can get to a concert because I want to go to a concert because I need to go and unwind. That's just me. And we'll see. We'll see if that works out the way I want it to, but we'll find out. But even if not, I will find something to do that day that's not work.
Hmm. Well, and I mean, even sometimes those things can be useful and productive in moving the business forward. Even if you're just out in the park, you're hitting a concert, you're at an event. I mean, like last week, I met an author that we may bring into the Continual Network. He's from Scotland. He was over here doing his first book tour. Had a fun chat. Met him. We're going to have some conversations. Um, just by accident, camp that wound up being stuck next to our camp. Because we had about 50 in our group. Happened to be somebody who is an opera singer and a narrator,
Nice.
and part of a group of narrators. Um, you know, there's always opportunity there to have conversations and meet people, and that's really what the game is all about. Is
Mhm.
see who you can meet, see who you talk to, see where relationships form. You know, sometimes it's a 3-minute conversation that goes nowhere, and sometimes it becomes you know very long lasting friendships, relationships, business relationships, whatever the case may be. So you're never 100% out of the game, but that doesn't mean that's what you're focused on.
No, I did that Sunday. I meant so later on I'm doing a double header tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm interviewing a world famous snooker player on top of like because I'm friends with his daughter, who's an actress slash and she's doing a documentary. So we're doing that interview tonight, which is cool. But while I was there, I met also I found a nice little studio in Calgary I never actually seen before, right? And it was really, 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 really it was fun. It was just a lot of fun, and it had a native theme. It was a native themed place. It was kind of cool, and who knows, might lead to some business down the road. And I ran into somebody I interviewed on this podcast 6 years ago. It was a Tonka Poets Society way back in the day. So I mean, this is just like it was, and she's like, I remember you. You interviewed like you remember this yard? It's like yeah. It's like
Yeah.
life's funny that way.
And it's amazing the number of people that will come back around over time that you run into, or things that are going on, or who you meet, who you find, all that kind of good stuff. So it's yeah, and it really is a small world out there.
It really is scary small, like scary, scary small. Um, it's fascinating. It's like, oh, you know them, I know them too, right? And every once in a while, so it's fun. It's like when you find an awesome person, and they're just it's. I think it's affirming when you find an awesome person and they're awesome to other people, and you know it. It's also sometimes you find other people who aren't so awesome, and you're also kind of affirmed that it's like, oh, it wasn't just me. He really was a dick, or she really was a dick. So it's like, yeah, you know,
It happens.
yeah, part of the game. So we're not going to talk about your other apocalyptic stuff because we did that off the air. On the air, like how's it been going with you? Like in terms of like you got like your own network. You've been running and building for a while now.
So we've crossed. So for the Continual Network, continualconvention.com, yeah, we've crossed 600 shows in a little over 2.25 years. And really, it's a core group of really about 6 people.
Yeah.
Um, and we've got a few other people that are part of it as well. But I mean, really, our core team is less than 10.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of people we work with, and a lot of people that come back and are frequently there. Um, but so the kinds of shows we started when we started a little over 2 years ago, it was a panel room because when all the conventions and stuff got locked down, we launched a panel room, something to sit there and just do the same thing we do at conventions and talk about whatever given topic. Right now, we've been doing a bunch of panel rooms about specialty topics. Like we just dropped one about writing attorneys and courtrooms, how the legal system works. We're about to drop one about how law enforcement and CSI works. We had on a friend of mine who is a CSI. We had another retired CSI. We had a number of people on who have that expertise talking about what does a real crime scene look like? How does that work? How does the investigation work? Tonight we're writing one about how to write about technology. We'll be recording that tonight. It'll be dropping in a couple of weeks. So we're doing a lot of panel rooms right now that are very topic specific about how to write in those areas. We've been for our an hour with, which is author interviews. We're continuing to crank out a lot of big names within the writing universe. Um, I just did a fun interview. We dropped it on July the 3rd for Aliens Day. Originally, it was supposed to be for Fairies and Aliens Day, which was end of June, and then we got then I had the plague, so we didn't get a chance to record it and had to hold it over a week. But so Joshua Cutchins, a friend of mine, writes about aliens, fairies, and Bigfoot. So we had a fun hour talking, or actually more than that, because we ran long, talking about folklore. How do you research folklore? How do you incorporate folklore into fiction? How do you go about doing all these kind of stuff? So I mean, we're having a lot of really fun conversations. Gail Z. Martin, you know, does a lot of the panel shows as well. She's got her supernatural fandom track because she is a super fan, and I mean, if you like supernatural TV show, you're going to like a lot of the stuff she writes. We, with our overall crew, we're putting out a lot of content, and pretty happy with the quality of it. We're looking to expand, where all we're showing and dropping shows, trying to make just migrating stuff over to the new website and the new web platform. So hopefully we're going to actually finally get all the content organized for the amount of stuff we've been dropping. But yeah, we've kind of been growing way faster and trying to build. We started trying to build a Wright Brothers plane, and so next thing we knew, we were definitely climbing on the back of a Concorde, and trying to use rubber bands to power it all. But that's part of the nature of the business. I've got more workshops coming that are sitting there that are recorded. They're in the process of being edited. The next couple of them are business planning for authors and for intellectual property. Hopefully those two and one more will be up and ready before Dragon Con here in the next couple of weeks. So it's all been a little bit busy. Those will be going up on the Speculative Fiction Academy as well. So yeah, it's been a little busy. I'll be at, and we'll be at Congregate, not this weekend, but the next one. I'll be teaching some workshops there with Patrick Dugan. So yeah, we're just running wide open.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been going. Like I said, Author Goddess here to tell you I did a talk at Conduit, but the freelance mindset, basically opening up the deal. I haven't done a lot of I'm kind of in this position in a weird spot where I'm like I don't really want to do shows like yours, shows like Conduit, where are naturally digital design. I still want to do those. But the stuff that's still kind of in the digital only or coming back to the real world, I'm kind of like waiting until they go back into the real world. Then I kind of want to do that because I feel like I do think like online stuff like this is always going to be valuable because there's always going to be, again, demand for content's infinite. Like it's absolutely infinite, right? So it's just finding that specialty of where you fit. But like I'm honestly like my goal is to build what I'm building up so that I kind of do one of two things: go back to the mountains because
Hmm.
the mountains are nice, they really really are, and two, travel the United States and meet all the crazy people in the states I've yet to meet. Like I would love to meet you in person. I think we probably wouldn't stop talking, but I mean,
Probably not, and we'd be in the bar till hey, the sun just came up. I got a panel in 2 hours.
pretty much. Pretty
Well,
much.
now the good news is pretty much sci-fi conventions start about 10 a.m. A few of them I do start at 9, and I look at those kind of side-eyed these days. But
It's like
because
why?
yeah,
It's like
why? We
yeah.
had programming going till 1 o'clock this morning. Congregates in Winston-Salem in a couple of weeks. And it's the first time I'm getting to do it now. I know the people that run the convention. I've got a lot of friends that do it. It just typically conflicts. The next weekend, I'm in Raleigh for Galaxy SuperCon for 4 days, and we'll be there selling a ton of books. And I mean, and that's a pretty large convention. And then for August, I kind of get to hide, but then it's Dragon Con for 5 days. I mean, and then, we've got Multiverse in Atlanta in October. I'll be doing selling at Time Travelers weekend here in Charlotte. That'll be in November, and there's a couple other things that are kind of on the radar right now, at least in that side of things.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I kind of want to do a year of some circuits in the United States. I've never done Dragon Con. I've done some of the bigger cons in the country, but I've never done like Dragon Con. And I've heard lots of good things about it, right? So, and it's probably my best chance to meet you, JD Estrada, right? Joe sometimes is there, like I said, and like I said, I think it's crazy to travel how it is to travel in my own country right now. So I'm like, if I spent a year just going to the States and just meeting some really, really, really cool people, I think I'd be really happy with that as a life goal. It's like, hey, so I'm all these really amazing people. That's kind of one of my goals next year is like get back into a con circuit. I don't know if it's a Canadian con circuit, but get back in a con circuit of some kind. So
Time to just go buy an RV, put in a mobile studio in the back, and
yeah, no, it's the thoughts there. Like honestly, like legitimately speaking, the thought has already crossed my mind. Like, get one of those big vans, have like my obnoxious logo all on the van, so people can just see me coming a mile away, right? I'm debating whether to do like ice cream music because I think that would be hilarious. Like I would just do that as just an app, just because I am that kind of asshole. But um, but
I refuse to comment on the grounds that might incriminate you.
Yeah, I know. Hey, no. See, it's okay. I will. My rule is I had actually a guest, and it was about like 3 weeks ago. He came on. If you incriminate yourself, I'm good with it. Where I draw the line is this is where I draw the line. If you incriminate other people, I'm like, dude, that
Yeah.
like don't incriminate other people. And like I said, I'm not condoning or condemning anything listening to this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't. But the thing is, don't be. I even gave him shit on the air. It's like, why did you say that on my show? Because now, if something does happen, I can't. They got me dead there. I can't fix this, right?
Yeah.
So, it's like they got me dead there. Did you say that? I did. You know you was going to do that. Yes, I did. Why didn't you say anything? I'm stupid. I mean, that's the only argument I got, right?
Well, and sometimes it becomes a really. Are you sure that's what you really want to say?
Oh yeah. Oh, I've had that. I've had that. I mean, I've been that guy on my own show too. I mean, it happens, but at the same time, I can respect. I respect people's opinions. I respect their stands, even if I don't agree with them. They're honestly really passionate enough to take a stand about something. Cool. But
It's well, and I mean, I don't think a lot of people know because I mean, I moderate a lot of panels, both online and a lot of one-on-one interviews or a lot of group panels, and I do a lot of it at live shows and stuff like that where you're sitting there moderating. I don't think people know how hard a job that can be.
oh
A
yeah,
lot of time it can be easy. It can be a lot of fun. You can go throw stuff in there. You get to steer the conversation. Occasionally, you have to turn your head and look and go, "Really? Is that really what you want to say?" Or look at somebody and go, and occasionally have to make that choice and say, scoot over a little bit and let people just say, "Yep, that's exactly who they are." Taken
yeah.
by it for what it's worth.
I actually a few years ago, this was at Creative Inc. in Vancouver. The moderator, it was my first time I ever had that instance. I was a panelist, not the moderator, the panelist. Right? It's a good lesson though. We were talking about anti-heroes, and I had a panelist just go off on. I still not sure why she went off on the tangent she did. One of the audience guests talked about Roseanne, not the actress, the character on TV. She quantified that immediately, and the panelists tore it into her just for that. And I was looking at that. It's like this is not what you're supposed to do on a panel like this, right? Again, not saying right or wrong, but just like that, I saw that, and it's like the moderator, I think was as dumbfounded as I was. But I learned from that. It's like if I ever see something like that if I ever moderate a panel and I see that, I'll kibosh it immediately. It's like, no, you're not tearing into the audience. I don't care what your opinion is. You're not tearing into the audience.
No, and I mean, one of the things that too is that if you're going to be on a panel, you're talking about something. Ostensibly, you're on that panel because you have knowledge or something to contribute. And I mean, that doesn't mean you've got years and years of experience. It just means you think you've got something to contribute. And pretty much, no matter where you're at, everyone has where they're at in their journey, and they have something to contribute, even if it's just to go and say, hey, I've got a question to follow up on what you just said. Creating that kind of conversation that shows that everybody's at a different stage and a different level. Any of these opportunities to watch or listen or participate in something like a panel or go to a convention, watch the stuff that's online. If you've got that opportunity to be a contributor, you have something to say. Just there's a couple of things to remember. Number one, typically brevity is your friend. And I say this as I get long-winded, but brevity is your friend. This thing of coming up with an answer and rambling for 27 minutes and then coming back around when no one else has gotten anything else is usually not a good choice. Number two, be respectful. You can disagree with somebody, and there's ways of doing that, but I mean, try to be respectful. And the other thing is this: if you really are not self-aware, at least pretend to be when you make certain comments, or if you're making something is going to be controversial. And that's often that's one of those things that can trigger a good conversation, is to put something out there that is controversial. There are ways of doing that, and there are ways of definitively not doing that. And most people I've watched do it in a way that they should not, because what they wind up doing is becoming a target of it instead of doing something that creates conversation. And I, very much am a free speech advocate. I very much am a person that believes everything should be open to discussion and conversation. All of us have that line that you don't cross, and you go and say, yeah, that's just going to be wrong. There's no way you can ever justify X. But the number of those topics to me is fairly limited. And, I am a firm believer in being able to argue both sides of something, because I believe it is being part of the process of educating myself about the topic, is to be able to argue pro and against something. If I can't make a pro argument for something, that's usually where I draw the line.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a very small handful of topics. Like it's
Yeah.
very, very small. For most things, though, you can have a rational discussion, and people can stand wherever they want to stand, and that's fine. Like I said, the political climate of not just your country but my country as well is such that it seems difficult. It actually really isn't. It's just, are you willing to listen to somebody? That's really what it comes down to. If you are they willing to listen to you? And if you
Are
can
you
do
willing
that,
to, are you willing to have a respectful conversation where you both disagree?
yeah.
And I mean, that's not an easy thing to do sometimes. I mean, but that's really kind of the hard thing, is informing yourself about the things about which you really don't agree.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Like I said, there's been a lot of things in the last year. And again, sometimes I take the popular opinion. I worry when I take the popular opinion, mind you, but I do take it sometimes. Sometimes I don't. And I am open enough to acknowledge, and this is just, again, it's a personal life lesson. I'm open enough to acknowledge I can be wrong, right? And as long as I'm open enough to do that, and I'm open enough to listen, I have found that more often than not, even if we do end up with an agreement to disagree, right? An agreement to disagree. Hold on a second here.
Mm,
Oh
I don't think you were the only one.
no, as far as that particular individual goes, I figured out a strat. I played that game very differently. There, I just looked at them. It's like, oh, you remind me of this. Fuck. And that's it. And I just like, you know what? And that was my answer. And I actually had I had an author come on my show actually about that. Nope. Oh, I'm sure. No. I'm sure. There are lots of hot button topics like that everywhere. I had a guest. We were let's say about a month and a half, 2 months ago. No, more like 3 months ago. We were talking about the Will Smith slap, right? And ended up going
Yep.
into like Columbine somehow, and then went talking about the political leaders. I decided to basically make fun of our current leader and our previous leader in such a way that she broke down and started laughing. I turned the topic into something fun because it's like, no, we're not going there. I'm so sorry, Sarah. Yeah, that's all I can say about that is,
One of
um,
these one of these things is toxic behavior is toxic behavior. Doesn't
mhm.
matter who they are or what they are or what the conversation is. If somebody is doing something along those lines that is pure straight on toxic behavior, that's on them, not on you. If somebody is and again, if you're in that family situation, that makes it often even more difficult, but sometimes you just got to look and go, really? If that's where you're going, then I guess we're not welcome. Thanks, appreciate it.
I'm out. Like just
I'm out.
basically is I'm out. Yeah, I'm out. Sorry,
And
I'm
that,
gonna do other things.
and if somebody wants to play emotional blackmail like that with your kids, is that somebody you want to be influencing where they're going? And I mean, this goes back to that idea of boundaries of, you know, hey, family, all that kind of good stuff. But I believe again in the rights for everybody to have different opinions, different approaches. And within family, it makes it harder than hell. There's no other way to put it than that. But at the same time, you can say, look, if I'm coming for family, family things, we're here for family, not to do the politics and BS. If you want to have that argument, let's do that sometime other than holidays, because that's not going to be productive. And then if you're going to do something like that and then try to put emotional blackmail around your kids, your grandkids, all that, okay, that's
That
not the
works
worst
too.
response.
No.
But you have to be willing to say, here's my boundaries, and we're all pretending to be adults here, so pick which line you want to be on.
You have to be firm. You have to be firm. I remember I grew up my upbringing with my family was tough. There was like there was some toxic elements on both sides. One side a little bit more than the other, but I'd be dishonest if I'd say it wasn't there. I learned a very important art form. I let them choose. I know what my boundaries are. It's like it's up to you. If you want to go past this boundary, I will walk. I don't care. Right. But if you are willing to stay within these boundaries, I'm cool. Right. I don't have to agree with you. I've even learned this. I don't even have to like you. I just right. I just have to have the basic common courtesy of a human being. If that's
Mhm.
there, I don't even have to like you. I would like to like you, but if it doesn't work out that way, I'm fine with it too. It's like one of those things I've learned how to do. And for me, it was how I grew up. So it's just like I realized that people always are going to make their own choices. Right? That's it. That's it. There's nothing you can do about that. So, but what you can do is go and say, okay, do I have to put up with your crap? Almost
Mhm.
always the answer is no.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless I'm being paid a lot of money.
There are times that you may make the choice because the repercussions are beyond what you want to tolerate, or because the repercussions are beyond what you want to accept. But very rarely are you in a position where it's not like you're in a position where they're going to eat you. They're not going to cook you and eat you. They're not going to tie you in the backyard and execute you. Now, I'm not going to say never, but I mean, it's unlikely. And if you are in that situation, you probably need to get the hell out of there anyway. But yeah, there's always those cases where, um, yeah, just some people make interesting choices, and sometimes you have to go and say, did you pay attention to your behavior? Do you think that behavior is okay? And if the answer is yes, then call me when you grow up.
Yep, and that's it. As I get older slash wiser, we'll say wiser may or may not actually apply to me. Sometimes I wonder.
More
Yeah,
experienced.
yeah. As I get more experience, we'll go with that. As I get more experience, I realize I don't have to cooperate with anybody. Now, there are, as you say, there are repercussions sometimes I may not want as a result of this, but I can be curmudgeonly, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's even fun, right? But I mean, it's one of those things where you realize like you bring your own worth to the table always, and then you don't have to accept somebody else's standards. This applies in panels, applies in family, applies in any relationship, right?
Well,
First,
my wife wrote an article a number of years ago and refreshes it periodically. And she's got a personal and professional development company and a consulting company. And she wrote an article about what are you tolerating? And the question was all about what are you tolerating mainly from other people, but even about yourself. What are you tolerating and why? And the question really became, you know, yes, we often will tolerate things because we don't want to accept the repercussions that may come with that. Um, but that's really the question you have to ask. We all tolerate a certain level of something we don't particularly like or care for because that's part of getting along with life and making things work. Sometimes that's work, sometimes that's family, whatever the case may be. But as we get older, and I mean, I think this is that thing that explains the 99-year-old guy sitting on the porch with a shotgun. Not that this is a life goal for me at all, but the 99-year-old guy sitting on the porch with a shotgun saying, "Get the hell off my lawn." It's because they've hit the point of I just don't want anybody's shit anymore.
yeah.
If you're rolling up because you're going to go take me to the home, the answer is no. It-
But that's just a couple things, James. No, but just don't kill anybody I know, okay? That would be awkward for me, right? I like you, and I'm just saying, just or if you do, somebody else, just somebody else that help you hide the evidence, okay? That's the first thing. I'm not advising again. I'm not encouraging criminal intent. I also I've always gotten the impression with you, right? If you really don't like somebody, I'm not going to say you won't let them. You're going to let them know about it exactly, but I just feel like you have a quicker "I'm off" button. It's like I'm out, and I wouldn't want to push you if you made that decision. It's like I'm out. You're not the kind of guy I want to push. I just kind of get that feeling. It's just like I'm just going to let you have your out, right? Yeah,
um, pretty much, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to waste the time on it.
No,
Yeah, no,
no,
not worth my
no.
blood pressure.
No, it's not. Like I said, when you get there, and you might, I'm not saying it's a life goal. Could I see it? It's one of those.
I am happy and willing to help almost anybody.
Yeah,
But when you come and ask for help, you don't necessarily have to take my advice. You have to like my advice just to, take it for
respect it.
whatever level it's worth.
Yeah. No,
But then don't argue with me about it. If you ask me for my opinion, I'm going to give it. Do with it what you will. But, then if you want to argue, okay, let's go have a if you want to debate it or ask questions, that's one thing.
oh,
Yeah,
no, there's no pretending. You either want my help or you don't.
you
Maybe
don't.
this
I
this
don't
is
want to
where
waste my time.
yeah, no, that there's no pretend. You want my help? I'll give it to you until I see you won't. Right? And if I see that, I'm out. It's
Hmm?
not worth my time. I'm at that point in my life, or you're paying me if you're going to
E-
pretend to care, I'm going to pretend to care too, and I'm going to make some money off it. That's how I look at
e-
it.
Exactly. If
Yeah.
you're just pretending, write me a check.
Yeah.
Um, if you really want my help, write me a check. But I mean, this. I'll answer. If you just got a question or something, I'll answer it best I can or whatnot. And if it's getting something in depth, then that's a whole different world. But I mean, if you come and say I need help and I need bam, and oh yeah, this is going to take a lot of work. Okay, great. But
Yeah. Yes,
yes,
it
your time
is.
is valuable.
Your time
That
and
is
your
the
energy,
number
you
one
can't.
thing.
Time and energy is a tie.
Hmm.
You can't get. It's hard to get. It's hard to get your energy back, and it's really, really, and you can't get your time back at all.
Time is
I
time is spent. It's yours.
Yeah, yeah. So, Arthur Goddess, like this is why, like I don't know if you check my advertising page, that is why my rates are the way they are. It's because my time and my effort's valuable, right? Right. It's not where I want to charge yet. Where I really want to is going to be when I get more clients. But the thing is, I recognize like there's a balance. There's what I'm willing to do. It's all like the one thing this conversation for you authentic artists is this: everything's a negotiation, and I mean everything. And you don't have to put up with anything you don't want to, provided you can pay the consequences.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one other thing to it too. If are you going to go to somebody to look for guidance and advice if their time is not valuable? Because value means that you're going to get. Yep.
Yep.
Value comes because somebody has knowledge, experience, skills, access, or tools that you don't necessarily have. And you're going to go say, I need some of these things. Well, and this is much like an exact conversation I had with somebody not long ago, which was, well, I don't have money to pay for editing. So do I need an editor? The answer is yes. If if you want someone to extend their time, their effort, their skills to help you create a marketable product, then yes, you're going to be writing a check for that.
Yes.
Or you should be. If you can't, are there ways of doing it? Sure. Are you going to come out with that quality product? Probably not. Are you going to then have the repercussions from not necessarily having that quality product? Yep. Bless you.
Thank you.
And often, and I mean the frequency with which I have the conversation, because somebody used a homemade cover, did self-editing that, they might have used a tool to go through and do it and then slap something up on Amazon and then look and say, well, why don't I have, and oh yeah, and didn't run an ad. And then they look and the only reviews they have aren't great. And things along those lines. There's a repercussion to everything. There's a cost to everything.
To answer that question, tell a story. Yeah. Seriously, tell a story. That's what you do anyway. Make like I don't know if I've been checking out anything I've been doing on my Facebook or my LinkedIn. I write stories every day there. I make ad copy, right? Right, and it's one of those things like write a to a point. I look at it like this. There are people I would do this for, but I wouldn't do this for everybody. Right. And it's something because even me, I'm kind of struggling to make ends meet as a freelancer. I'm still figuring all this out. Even now, I see the value of if I'm hiring somebody with the quality of, say, an Envu to do my work, I'm paying her. I've already made that decision because it's more respectful than to ask someone of that caliber to trade. Even if my skills are on par in my own way, it's a respect thing. You have to realize lose.
Well, barter is one of those things that there is value to that. And I mean, there are times I absolutely have done that and do, and we have an inner, well, use your good words and only the good ones. And in the right places.
We're all professionals here.
This is where, we can't self-edit. I mean, you're typing, you're writing right now. You're not in editing mode. But I mean, in any business, not just writing, not just creating, in any business, one of the harsh truths is this: your success is often not tied to just you. It's who are the people you surround yourself with, who are the people that, you support each other and try to lift and make everybody better. If you're worried about how you succeed alone, generally that's what's going to happen, is you're going to be doing things alone. However, if you've got a strong network of people that you trust, then barter becomes invaluable because you're helping and lifting everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If it's somebody you don't know, or somebody that comes and says, "Hey, I'll exchange A for B," yeah, absolutely, you're 100% correct.
Yes.
Um, our brains will hide a lot of stuff from us.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, uh, you've got to make sure that there's a good balance there for doing the barter, and that you've got that capacity. Um, and that the time and the value and all that's there for you. But uh, again, just sort of looking at how, just to look at marketing in general. How can you sell yourself? Because if we go going back to that idea of, well, how do I put skills on a resume, or how do I put this out there as services that I offer and I provide? We're writers, we're creators, we are storytellers. Even if it's nonfiction, you're writing news articles, things like this. You're a storyteller because you're taking the prescient points, you're taking the ideas that need to be communicated, and you're putting them together in a way that explains the narrative. Whether that is, to start out, I knew, or this new tool was released. Let's say that I wanted to learn to do X, Y, and Z in my writing and editing. You did a thing and it's Josh's fault. It's
What did
always
I do?
Josh's fault.
What did I do?
At least it wasn't my fault this time. A lot of the time it's
Yeah.
my
What
fault.
did I do? What did I
It's
do?
I said something that sounded like a good idea at the time. That's the reason there's an anthology coming.
Yeah.
That's neither a story here or there. Um, we're storytellers. Come and tell the narrative about how and why you decided to do something. Um, the idea of the frequency of, well, why did you become a writer? Wait, there was an option. uh, you know and openly admit, I am a smart ass. you know Sarcasm, I speak fluent sarcasm in a number of dialects. But learning the language you speak and learning to be precise in that language is one of those things that we as writers have to do and always be working to improve upon. Oh no, I can be that too. I absolutely can be a dumbass as
Oh,
well as a smart ass.
we're both good at it.
Um, there's video evidence to prove it, but I'm a firm believer, if I'm going to be a dumbass, it better be on camera so that at least I can prove how stupid I was at the time, and have a good story to tell for it. Um,
If you're gonna be a dumbass, be entertaining.
Absolutely.
Yep.
If nothing else, if you can make people laugh.
Yes. Snark, I'm 50-50 on snark. I think snark in small doses is great. In large doses, I worry about your emotional balance. That's just what I noticed. It usually covers up after a while. So it's like a little bit's good, but it's like anything else. A little too much, and I'm like, what's the main course here?
I can't say much. Darren refers to me as Tony Snark. So,
Yeah.
but again, moderation.
So I'm just gonna add something like I'm gonna toot my own horn because it's my own show. One of the reasons why my advertising does is structured the way it is I'm really good. I'm really good at figuring out what makes people tick. Some people have come out of this thing. You're a good therapist. I got therapy out of this. I can look at people's strengths and go, this is how I can build you up, and this is the story you can tell to the world. It's a really natural application of what I do. So when you're branding yourself, I can help you with that. Or branding your product, I can do the same thing. Right? It's all, we are storytellers, and everything you see, when you go out and even walking down the street, the signs, the billboards, everything's a story.
Mm-hmm.
It's understanding exactly the kind of story being told, and again, those specific choices. And when you get to the point when you realize, those ads are shitty, you're onto something.
Well, and I think we talked about this a little bit when you were working on some of the stuff, is that depending on the medium you're trying to target. So if you're a novel writer and you can crank out novels all day long, however, you're trying to go summarize it to get down to that blurb that goes on the back of the book. I know a lot of people that absolutely suck at that. They cannot come down to what's the point. And that's one of those things that we often come and do a lot of, is how do you trim something to the point? Or like doing video trailers, doing ad spots, writing the copy that hooks somebody that says this is a book that is or is not good for you, is or is not a fit for the things you do or do not like, is something that would be interesting to you. You know, one of those things that we try to do a lot of the time is hook a wider net. Well, if you're trying to catch everyone, you catch no one. If you're trying to catch every audience, you're catching no audience. If you can go and say, this is the person that's going to want what I do the most, you know, if you put together a video trailer about somebody's book that says, this is targeted to someone who likes to read, for example.
And he just, hello? His internet just went down for a second there. 1 second here. Can you see him, Author Goddess, or is it just me?
I think I dropped for a minute.
You did.
Yeah, they're
You
doing
did.
work on. Yeah, they're doing light work on the phone lines out here.
Yeah.
You know, if you can come in and say, I'm a fan of Stephen King, and I'm a. All right, let me swap to.
Yeah, you're much better now. Now he just disappeared, and he's back.
All right, let's see if that connection is better.
Yeah,
we'll swap to the backup. So you know, if you can come in and say, for example, if you're a fan of Stephen King and you're a fan of It, you're going to love blank. Well, by going in and setting that up to say, you narrowed and you said this author, and then you came and you said, but you're a fan of this very specific work and this very specific character, you've now cut out the people looking for paranormal romance. Now, if you make this look like the clown's in love when they really aren't, you know, well, they're in love of eating, but you know, if you're coming in and you're marketing something that just looks like a generic horror or a generic urban fantasy, that the wings are out here, well, yeah, you're going to pick up maybe a few of those people, but if you get this narrow and hit that target audience, you're going to also pick people going out this way, but you're going to more narrowly target those people that really are going to be the ones that love the work and evangelize it, because this is word of mouth is still the winning marketing overall.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of one of those things that means it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes work. And this is one of the biggest problems for authors is we're never going to create the kind of volume to feed one person. And so the more targeted and the more narrow you get, the more likely you are to find those true evangelists. But it becomes very tempting in our marketing to shotgun this thing really wide instead of saying, I want the people that read and are fans of this.
So I'm going to mention something I just did earlier this week. So I've been helping test out a game, something I've been working on, and they asked me to give them a very ambitious marketing plan. And not only did I give them that, I told them the big problem with the game currently right now is it's not specific enough. Because the big issue is, like, and this is just games. This is not just the stories. You have some of this too, in the sense that not what do you want your players to feel playing this game. And the reason I went from that perspective is because once you have that feeling, you can narrow down your audience, and even from that feeling, create a couple of different ways to market to specific audiences. But it starts with that specific feeling, right? So I sent him a proposal Monday morning. Here you go. Now I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't expect to hear back because of the amount of work and effort that still needs to be done. I've told James about this game out there. It's about a year away from being really ready to go out to the market. But there's a lot of work that has to be done. And I gave him what my price would be to get that work done, because it's a lot of things. But the majority of my job would be to figure out what that feeling actually is, cultivate that feeling as much as I can, and build a campaign based on that. So when I launch it on a Kickstarter, the people that love that kind of game are going to know exactly what they're going to get. Because the more specific you are, and this applies to novels, this applies to anything you pitch.
Everything.
Yeah. The more specific you are, the more you can figure out A, your correct strategy, but B as well, you have a clear idea. Well, okay, well, for example, I have an Alice in Wonderland Greek mythology epic poetry. That sounds out there. No, Alice in Wonderland fans, theater people that like. I have now already just given you, just based on those two things, an idea of what my audience is. So what kind of ads would I build just for that audience? Because I don't care about anybody else. Now, if I'm so good, now here's the thing. This is why Harry Potter's happened. This is why phenomenons happen. If you're so good at that thing and it's really, really good, those fans are going to be like, no, this is the absolute shit. And I mean, the like the best, the absolutely unbelievable. And then suddenly someone's going to pick up your version of Prisoner of Azkaban, and next thing you know, you're going to wake up and like, holy crap, what happened here? Right? That's how it works.
Well, so if we go down to biochemistry,
Yeah.
I mean, fundamentally, it's all about the dopamine hit. When we go to things for entertainment, especially whether it's games, whether it is reading fiction, whether it's music, movies, TV, whatever the case is we're going to, we're going there because we're going for an experience. We're going because we want to feel a certain way. So, for example, let's take the Marvel formula and let's actually compare the Marvel formula to the DC formula in their films. Both of them follow the same beats. So why do they get such different results? It's how well they tune the timing and all the elements of the storytelling. Does Marvel win every time? No. There are certain things like the Eternals. The Eternals was beautiful. Should have been a miniseries. What about, but if we can look at so many of the elements of the films, and let's look at phases 1 through 3, how well they tie together, 22, 24 films to ultimately get down to one big conclusion, one big hit. Look at that kind of storytelling and look at it being done effectively. Then we look at DC, wanted that darker, grittier feel. Well, you never had kind of that fun feeling to get and build that sense of connection before you dove into the darkness with these characters. You never had that sense of success and normalcy before you fell into the world of wonder. The exception there was the first Wonder Woman.
And the first Wonder Woman, because it's got a big, giant sense of wonder to it. It's actually like the reasons it works. Well, it does two things really well. It reverses the dynamic brilliantly. It's got a brilliant dynamic reversal. But the other thing that works, it's a sense of wonder. Diana's not a dark character, and they never try to portray her as a dark character. You can put her in a dark situation. And when you get to Steve Trevor's death in the first movie, it hits you. But why does it hit you? It hits you because you got to see them interact in very fun ways throughout the movie. You got to see their connection form and grow and develop. And so when finally he dies, it's
There's
heartbreaking.
meaning.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking because you know what she experienced. You know what she went through with him, right? It went from being like she's amused by him to no, they're there for each other. And then finally, he can't be there for her anymore, and it's heartbreaking. And that's why the first movie works. The reason why the second movie doesn't work is because they went away from that, right? They went away from that. Like DC, ironically, is Marvel is supposed to be the grin and gritty one, except it doesn't. It does the same thing. It shows you the wonder. It shows you their humanity. I think, as much as I think Iron Man 3 is only an okay movie, my favorite scene is when he's bossing around the 8-year-old to build toys. I think it's hilarious because it's Tony Stark at his most human, right? Like that's Tony. No matter who it is, what it is, this is who he is, and it's great, right? Rest of the movie's so. It's not quite a home run, but then you look at something like Guardians of the Galaxy, like that one in particular is very brilliant. How they did that, they gave you a connection with the music. It was beautifully well done. And they understand, like I said, Marvel gets emotional resonance far better than the DC movies do, and that's why the DC movies the other movie that was kind of fun was Shazam. Shazam was a fun movie. It wasn't, I wouldn't say a great movie. It was
Still
fun.
haven't seen that one, so I'm
Yeah,
behind.
yeah. I'm not saying they're all worth watching, but that one, it just for what it is, it's good. It's right, but
Well,
again, it's not a dark movie.
well, and one other thing I'll say is this that's also different between the two. Marvel kind of took some of their almost B-list characters and used them as the foundation. I mean, as I grew up reading Iron Man comic books, I grew up reading Captain America's. I remember those comics, but they were never like that was not the Marvel characters anybody was like, oh yeah, that's I always thought Iron Man was fun because of the tech. I
Yeah.
was even that at that age. So I mean, to me that was always kind of cool, but at the end of the day it was about the suit. But when you look at how they did the movies, they took a lot of hate to put it this way, but second string comics, Guardians of the Galaxy, they took a lot of these other sort of not the prime Marvel properties and came in and said, here you go. We're going to build this. We're not going to go throw out another Spider-Man movie. We're not going to go through, even though they did, but they weren't building it all on these characters they've kind of run over and over again. The one kind of thing I'm gonna put out there is it was a start and fit with the Hulk. It was finding the right flavor of Hulk in there that was a challenge. But if you really look, Iron Man is the foundation for the entire series, and really it's Robert Downey Jr., which at the time was a huge risk for him as an actor. To sign him as an actor, because he was coming out of really that was his chance at climbing the stardom ladder again. And look at what he's done. And in many ways you can say he's kind of become that level of ego in certain ways. But it was a risk, but they went and said, let's use properties people don't really know to go and build a franchise, versus DC is also basically going out there and saying, okay, let's drag the same characters out again and go with another telling of them, but we're going to make them dark and gritty this time. Superman's going to be broody and pouty. No. They should,
they have, and what really kills me about DC, they have Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman run. Just pick a story from that. Just it doesn't have to be in the perfect order. Just pick one, because they're all good and they're fun and they're no. I watch a Superman movie now, I get very frustrated because it's like this, why can't you? He's not hard. Just make him fun. That's all you got to do. That's it. That's all you got to do. Right.
But I think but when we look and talk about the marketing side of things, look at the stories being told. Fundamentally, the stories are not so different. You have a hero, they find their challenge, they have to fight their way back up to then go and beat the big bad. It's not a complicated story. How you get there and how you do it is what goes from it sucks to it's mediocre to, oh wow, I took the emotional hit.
Yeah. That's why
And
like Marvel works. Now, again, I'm not crazy. I haven't seen any of the Phase 4 movies yet. I am going to eventually see Thor because that's a one that I made a decision for. This is my decision movie wise with Marvel from here on in. I'm staying away from the Avengers. I'm not doing another 22-part hit ever again. I'm never doing it. But there are franchises I'm going to enjoy. Like when the new Guardians of the Galaxy comes out, I'll pick that up. Thor, and they have a cool I have a soft spot for Ant-Man. It's not their best franchise, but it's a fun one. It's like a fun ones where I can just get in, enjoy that experience, and get out. That's what I want. I don't want big. I just don't.
Well, kind of looping back to where I started with this is the reason it's important is Marvel found their audience, anchored it, and that audience is then who brought in the people that weren't comic book fans. They grew geekdom and fandom tremendously. DC trotted out the same characters, trotted them out as the darker versions, and didn't bring a new audience. In fact, they lost some audience. Yes, they've sold good numbers. They've made dollars, but much of that is because of people that came in off the back end of that. It was the ability to tell the story. I actually, a number of years ago on a panel, made a comment and I said, in many ways, I blame the Big Bang Theory for growing geekdom among the normals.
I hate that show so much. I just do. But
And
I understand where you're going with it, but I hate that show so much.
it's not about that.
Yeah, I know.
It was about they showed characterizations and they showed a way for the quote unquote normal person and Penny to come into that world. They told a story. They told the romanticized story of the geek finding love.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of it that you look at and it was really cringy, especially if you're on the geek side of the world. But at the same time, it's one of those things that all of a sudden said, there's a lot of fun. There's a lot to be learned. There's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of value in this universe. And we opened the door for the other people and they all came flooding through. And I think without that, you would not have necessarily seen kind of the geekdom revival we've had.
I
It was a gateway drug.
Oh, no, it was. It definitely was. I think it depends on. I think the geekdom wave. It's like Big Bang is definitely part of it. I would also say Buffy,
Mm-hmm.
right, and to a smaller extent, the X Files also played a role in
Mm-hmm.
because these were mainstream hit shows that opened these really cool little worlds up. But yeah, Big Bang definitely was the cusp, and I think it was just again it was that the Marvel movies hitting the way they hit, the Phase One movies being solid hits, also was fantastic, and the other big DC hit that actually we didn't talk about was the Christopher Nolan trilogy of Batman Begins.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that also hit at the right time. So it was just there was a good confluence. I personal quirks aside, the Big Bang Theory is a hit, and you know what? And the fact of the matter is, those characters open doors for a lot of people to do. Now, do I again?
And there's one other thing I'll say, though, and this is the reason I have argued about
Mhm.
Big Bang having done what it did was because it wasn't a fandom, it was about fandom. And
Yeah,
it opened a door that said, we're fans of this and we're going to talk about the geekdom of this week. It wasn't, when you look at X-Files, you look at Buffy, you dove deep into the lore and the fans of those things got pulled in hard, fast, and deep and stayed there or fell out.
yeah,
Big Bang was kind of like going through the convention hall of, oh, this week we get to pull this fandom off the shelf. This week we get to pull this one off the shelf. Obviously you go with some of the staples, Star Wars, Star Trek. But they also dove into some of the lesser fandoms and things like that. And so that's the reason I've referred to it as kind of a gateway drug.
yeah. No,
Is it was walking into the sample shop and saying, I'm gonna take one of column A, one of column B, one of column C, and I'm gonna poke fun of the geeks.
this is what I'll give you. It's not even so much about fandom. It's also just about the fact that it's okay to love. Like the other big thing is my generation in particular, we are big nostalgia, childhood nostalgia junkies. And the cool thing about the Big Bang Theory is if you go into it long enough, you will find your hobby
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in the show, somewhere, right? I'm still a big mark for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Disney Afternoon. I still love that stuff. And every once in a while, you'll see it on a show like that. It was about Big Bang Theory made obsession, like in hobbies, and then like obsessions and passions. They made it cool. I'll give it that. That I will agree with you on. Right? That's that, and because of that, it's like, hey, maybe that Magic collection I had, hey, that's still cool, and that's why. And again, that's why like you're looking at stuff like video games. My age is now a prime age to play video games at this point. It's no longer a just a kids thing anymore. It's an adult thing now. And and as we keep evolving with the tech and everything else, right? Again, you're now having even more of these things coming in to compete for those dopamine levels, those feelings, those experiences, and that's
Well,
Big Bang played a big role in that. I have to admit it.
and I mean, one of the other things that we now see is things that were regarded purely for kids, going back to comic book movies. From a gaming perspective, we're now seeing flavors of video gaming being used in rehab. We're seeing it being used in retirement homes. We're seeing it being used in a lot of different ways that, it's not just entertainment anymore. It's ways of creating engagement. It's ways of creating community. It's ways of it really is transforming the world and becoming that next generation of communication and community is that virtual sense.
Well, it's not. It's just a basic human psychology point of view, and this is
Mhm.
this: if I'm going to try to sell you something, your guard's going to be up. You're like, okay, what do you want? But if I go to you, you want to play a game? The natural inclination is, okay, what do you got? Right?
Mhm.
It. Human beings are wired to have fun, and I learned this of all places reading Dr. Seuss in front of an audience, watching authors become children overnight.
Mhm.
When you see a big, well-known agent is now reading Fox and Sox in a Valley Girl accent, you found something there. And so it's just like what I realized, like with marketing, with everything, if you can create an interactive, this is just in general, games do this. Games are all about interaction. If you can create an interactive environment that's fun, it's universal. Doesn't matter
Mhm.
what your age group is, right? It's just like that's how you communicate. That's how we communicate. If I'm going to go to you, hey, like I said, I got this product you want. I'm like, I don't know. Want to play a game about it, and I'll show you this product. Okay, you know what? I'll try it. Why not? What's the worst that can happen, right?
Well, and at the end of the day, it's all about story and experience.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make me feel? And what do I get to experience coming out of this? And again, that comes back to every stage of, and going back to that idea of translating books, movies, TVs, music. It's still a product. It's got to be bought because it costs time, money, everything to make it. Creators need to make a living. You got to pay the rent. You got to got to pay the bar tab. So being with all of that, that means we have to tell the same narrative a lot of different ways before we get to the story itself. Think about the movie trailers that get cut, the book trailers you're doing, the blurb on the back of the book, the ad copy. All these different things have to come into play before somebody actually picks up the book just to even see the cover. Short of a lot of luck, for the most part, the cover itself is even telling a story. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to have told the story 7 different ways before you get the chance for somebody to pick up the book and maybe read the story or turn on TV and watch the story. Put the, I was about to sound old, put the record on the thing and put the needle. Oh, wait. Um, you
Hey,
know,
that hobby's still popular too. It's actually gotten a bit of a resurgence. So you're not you can actually say
yeah.
it's semi cool.
But, eh, you know, before we get someone to the point of making a buying decision and letting them try out the experience, we've got to have told them a fair amount about what we're making a promise to them. And that's what the marketing does is we're making a commitment about what's the experience you're going to get if you give this a try.
It's exactly. Which is why it's important to be authentic, and it's why it's important to have a little bit of ethics in what you do. Otherwise, you might be able to get someone to come once, but you'll never get them to come again. So
Hmm.
that's just that, and that is why, ironically, like the best salesmen are actually some of the most ethical people. They'll tell you exactly, they'll make you a promise, and then they'll deliver it. And that's
Hmm.
actually good. And maybe the final secret ingredient to this is good customer service. That's ultimately what you do, whether you're editing a book, whether you're writing a book, whether you're in the customer service business, right? Now your customer might not always be readers, it might be movie studios, it might be other business people sometimes, but you're still in the customer service industry when you break it all down. So you have to figure out who your customers are and how best to cater to them. What do you want to make them feel?
Yeah. I mean, it's all part of the game.
It is. So, sir, because you have somewhere else you do need to be, I figured you might want to eat or something.
Now I just need to caffeinate and open the line before we start recording our shows tonight.
Nice, because you're going to be going what, in about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, about 20 minutes.
Okay, so we'll go another 15, and then we'll that way.
We can go about another 10.
Yeah, another 10. Okay, we'll
Yeah,
go to
because
quarter.
I need to open up the line up about 10 till.
Oh wait, no problem, no problem. So we'll go another 8 minutes here. So all that to say, so with all the projects you have you had time to write more fiction lately? Have you had a chance?
Yeah, I've got several things that are in the works right now. The one I'm trying to finish up is I'm probably going to call it hard space opera. It's not true hard sci-fi because again, we're being a bit snarky and a little bit absurd. But that's working on that. I've got one that I'm working on, a series that's going to be a lit RPG series. The first one of those I'll be finishing up as soon as I finish up the first draft of the space opera one, which I was originally planning to have done end of April, and well, schedules. And I got a couple of novellas in the works and a couple of short stories that are in the works and a couple other things that are already under contract. So I'm getting some writing done. Right now, the other thing I'm working on is book 2 in the Business Essentials for Writers series. Is in the works, and I'm shooting to have it out about this time next year.
Nice.
And like I said, I'm doing a lot of the workshop work. We're in the process right now of migrating the Author Essentials workshop site. So the new site should be up and loading in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be doing a hard relaunch with that. Just getting it off after problems with the platform we were on. Got bought and kind of pulled out from under us without notice. Thankfully, I was already in the middle process of moving stuff over to a new platform anyway. But yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
AuthorEssentials.net is up. If you jump on the mailing list, you can find out when the next round of workshops is available, and in fact, you'll be able to get some discounts as well. You can find me at jamesbnettles.com. You
With
can
is it Authors Essentials or A's and
author
eight or author?
AuthorEssentials.net.
Not net.
AuthorEssentials.net. And
Okay.
then it's AuthorEssentialsWorkshops.com. Hang on, I'll put it in the chat just for sake of.
Oh, good. There you go.
There we go. That's it.
Trained mother. I'm a trained professional, James, or something like that. Don't tell anybody.
Well, yeah, I pretend to be on one on TV occasionally.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the works right now, the Business Essentials for Writers workshop is available as well over at the Speculative Fiction Academy, where I am the business dean. Other stuff that I'm working on, I've got some articles and things like that coming out, and there are a couple of other fun things that are slated at the moment. Can't quite talk about some of the fun projects quite yet. And there are a couple of other little semi-secret projects in the works, as always.
Yeah.
We'll see how many of them come to actual fruition, but
We just got to swing at the bat, my friend. So, James, you got to do this again when you got a little bit more time.
And when I have a little bit more voice.
Yes. But for everybody watching, everybody's listening, this is the first of 2 streams today. I'm going to be doing another stream a little bit later on tonight. By the way, just so you know, your special little guest you recommended, she's going on tomorrow. It's going to be fun.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, they're having a party for her this weekend. I think I'm going to be out of town, but just finished up a bunch of images for the first book she worked on. And she's been doing some others since then, but she ought to be a fun interview.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. So for those wondering, so me and James were talking shop, and he mentions this amazing young illustrator who does this amazing work. And we're not going to talk about the work of because that made some of the stuff he talked about there made me cry a little bit. Just some things that he had to deal with. It's like, why? But she's great, and that's going to be fun. That's going to be tomorrow in early afternoon. But for everybody watching, everybody listening, there's my advertising services. If you want me to actually promote your brand or yourself, this is the place to go. I make videos, do interviews like this, and I build you up, build your brand, build your project, whatever the case may be. So you can do that. And like I said, I have Jim and Licia Bear tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. So that will be in a little bit, over 2 hours from now. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys tonight.
Thanks, Josh.